Hal had this graphic about Colorado yesterday evening. According to a source, last night's Colorado Board of Regents meeting was called so athletics and campus could educate the regents on the many options facing Colorado regarding the Pac-12 and realignment. No action was taken. I had a conversation with Brian earlier this afternoon, and he kind of gave me the impression, he goes, listen, no one's talking to me. No one's really talking much at all, but he feels like that he thinks that Colorado would love at some point, and most likely will at some point end back up in the Big 12. That doesn't mean that happens, but that was his conversation with me.
Yeah, I don't think that you're right now in a point where you can be, look, you can hold old grudges or anything like that. If you're Colorado and you were mad about for some reason going to the leaving the Big 12, or you're in the Big 12 and you're mad at Colorado, I think, look, it's all hands on deck right now to try to make this work because nobody knows where it's going. So, I think Colorado would fit nicely back in the Big 12. I wouldn't mind seeing it. They were good games at the time. I don't think that, outside of maybe financial gains that they made, football-wise, recruiting in California, look, they might have been able to recruit L.A. a little bit, but what's it done for them in the last decade? Colorado's kind of it's very much, they're not even an also-ran. They're kind of an afterthought, in that conference. So maybe coming back to the Big 12 might shoot some life into it. I don't know.
I mean, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about just Colorado joining the Big 12? Is that what you're commenting on, basically?
About that university,
Yeah, I mean, cool. They want to join the Big 12. I mean, I think the bigger picture right now is all of the other parts going on, not specifically them, because they're obviously a part of a group that's trying to figure things out right now. And they're not even the top part of that group. They're the second tier of that Pac-12 group alone. They're, like a lot of other people, wondering what's going to happen with Oregon and Washington. I think that's what a lot of people are wondering, but I think Oregon and Washington are also going to wondering what's going on with Notre Dame. And I think a lot of people just in general are wondering what's going on. I don't think anybody has a truly great grasp. And if you go just by social media and you bounce from every rumor, every, quote unquote insider who is non-existent 99.9% of the time, but when realignment rolls around, they suddenly have every source known to man. It's weird how that works, but there's some of those folks, and if you follow all that stuff, then you'll go down some rabbit holes, man. You'll think all sorts of stuff is going on, and there clearly is a lot going on, but I don't think it's really much clearer today than it was yesterday. I think the Pac-12 is trying to do everything that it can to stay afloat as best they can. I think the alliance, which is funny to say, this new alliance, I guess, is attempting to try to become something that, helps the Pac-12 out and ultimately helps the ACC out. And the Big 12 is just sitting there in the middle, fighting, trying to grab teams while they can and hoping that they can somehow stave off this alliance. That's kind of the lay of the land, it seems like, right now. And, I still don't quite understand this new alliance thing. I don't get it at all. I think it's dumb, and I think it's a waste of time, and it's not an anti-Pac-12 or an anti-ACC thing. It's just I don't get it. I don't understand it, because why would the ACC help them to begin with?
Well, why? And again, how does it benefit you financially if it can't get you to the level of the other two?
Right.
Because if it doesn't do that, then you're wasting your time even doing it. Because if you go to the television networks and say, okay, we're going to align the East Coast and the West Coast here, and these 10 and these 14, and have 24 teams and figure out a scheduling thing. What does that do for you? And that does $50 million for us.
Still not even a conference.
And they're not even, yeah. So
it's not the SEC. It's not the Big Ten stretching from coast to coast. It's two conferences joining up, where on one side you've got rumored to be at least a couple of teams who we know, if the SEC were to call, would bolt this new alliance in 0.2 seconds and be out of the door and not care one bit about what happens to everybody else. They would only be doing this because it's what they see as just their best option, I guess, until the SEC or the Big Ten call. That's the Pac-12 side. On the other side, you've got more teams than would actually be invited by both probably combined, who would be willing to jump out of any contract right now if they could to join any of those two conferences, whether that be Clemson, whether that be Florida State, whether that be Virginia Tech or Virginia or North Carolina, or half the league that's been mentioned as, SEC or Big Ten. The moment those teams, I feel like, get the call, they would bolt as well. So tell me, what is so you just come together to play bowl games, sort of championship game, which is really...
What would the championship game mean?
It's exactly. What is... You're the Tier 2 national champion?
No,
what is it?
Are you the ACC champion,
right,
or the Pac-12, or is this another game?
Right, that's what I would call a bowl game. Like,
yeah.
I mean, what is the point of it? Is it just a bonus game that crowns the undisputed ACC Pac-12 champion of the world? What is that even? Like, what is that? That's 2 of the 5 power conferences, or 4 if you even want to limit it to that, but there's still 5 at this time. So you're the 2/5 champ of the nation, or like, that's what I'm saying is like, what would the championship game even mean? What would it be for? Is it replacing another game? Like, that's just the game alone, much less. And if you're not all contractually tied in and anybody can basically leave like we expect, then what's the point?
Here's what I didn't understand. Did you see the release where it says a loose partnership?
Yeah, like, I mean.
What the hell? Is that like a replacing a loose alliance? It's like, it also might have been just kind of a delay tactic.
Loose partnership is exactly what it would be. I mean, that's the only thing they can guarantee. Plus, if you're trying to compete, and that's what you need to do to find the best, because you can't compete necessarily brand-wise because, one side is Pepsi and one side is Coke, and right now everybody else feels like maybe they're RC Cola right now. So you are trying to compete with those, those huge brands. You cannot go to them and say like, hey, I know that we'll have some good games. Like Oregon and Clemson will play, occasionally. But how do you feel about Oregon State versus NC State? Not going to do anything for anybody.
No.
Hey, how do we feel about Washington State going to Wake Forest? I mean, those are not going to compete when the Big Ten says like, yeah, we're going to have USC and Ohio State.
Dude, I'm waiting for that Stanford BC basketball game midweek. That's going to be freaking sweet, man. No, I mean, like, and this before the Pac-12 or the the Pac-12 fans or the ACC fans come and jumping in the mentions. I'm not saying this with any disrespect. I'm just, like, if you know what this is supposed to be and why this is supposed to be a good idea, please explain it to me, because that's all I'm having a hard trouble with is just trying to figure out what this would actually do and why it would be cool and why it would make any sense and why it would really stave off anything, because I've had 24 hours now to look at it, and it just still does not make any sense to me as being some big game changer.
I would like to just see everyone not have any kind of statements at all.
That'd be good too.
But of course, we understand that's nearly impossible. Kansas